have a what was it? Bible verse. Oh, wait a second. I got tape on my thing. Hold up a second. There we go. I guess I got it on my face cam too, tape, so that, the devil can't see me, I guess. But not going to be able to hide really in this world. It's already over concerning that. But this is really important. It was one of Samuel somewhere was the verse. So then I scrolled to the next chapter or two or somewhere, and then I found that verse in Samuel, 2 Samuel, I think. And I wanted to speak about it, whatever I've been given to understand Father's judgments here and what's going on, because there's another verse somewhere else. I think it's Chronicles. I'm not 100% sure where the other one is in it. And it says it plainly. It says, Satan like moved David. But then we have the word Lord there, which should be the Father's name and not Baal. Yahuwah moved, the Creator moved. First of all, we read his anger aroused against Israel. We know this is not a blessing. Then the anger, the righteous anger of the Creator moved against Israel, moved David to number the troops. And so right away we should know that this is a judgment. This is his anger against Israel and not a blessing. But then we read Satan moves David. We got the two different places in Scripture, and they're plain as day. That's what it says, the Creator, and also says Satan. And like so often, the understanding with an enigma like that is it's both. Both are true. And I don't, there's so many other examples of this, and here and there I've, given where it's both, where the understanding, but the carnal man, there's people who specialize and will say openly what false prophets believe in their heart already. So they tell a little bit more truth concerning that they found out the revelation that Satan is the true God, and, the Lord, which shouldn't be Lord there, but the Creator is Satan. And they'll say that openly because the good God doesn't destroy. The good God doesn't judge, is what they're saying at all. For a heart teaching, no judgment, because a carnal man cannot believe in the judgments of the Creator. In his heart, he believes in no judgments, because what this means, if, his judgments, which are true and exist with power, that for every action, there's a judgment that they cannot stop. There's a blinding that they cannot stop. There's a handing over to sin that they cannot stop. And the way it works is the Father hands over. Someone sins, and then they go into more sin, which causes more destruction of the flesh, spiritual, more death, being destroyed anyways for holding on to their soul and not giving it up, so that we could be destroyed here a little and there a little while we live. The new man, the Father's Spirit in us, making us alive while we die to the old man, the destruction of the flesh. We read Satan, hand him over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh. Obviously, the apostle understood this thing in judgment, and it's in the Scripture over and over again, but it has to be given to see and believe, to perceive with spiritual eyes and hear with spiritual ears. Yes, the Creator moved David in anger, aroused against, as a punishment, a judgment. How is this true? And also we read, Satan moves David. What's going on here? We also read that the Father does not tempt anyone to sin. It comes from self. It comes from being tempted by the devil, and comes from the deceitful heart within. These things are all one and true, from the enemy and from within. Someone that's one with the devil, that is his or her thoughts, and they obey the devil, and it's one. It's in the heart. It's in spirit, in the unbeliever. Satan for the destruction of the flesh, for judgment, for eating up the dust. The snake, the serpent, eats the dust, the flesh of man. Man is dust, for his destruction and judgment. That if he sins continually, he's being destroyed continually in this life already now. He who is saving his soul shall be destroying it. But he who is destroying his soul shall be finding life, saving it. Spiritual words. And that's why we have so many wars and flesh and killing. Because a carnal man thinks he understands, thinks he knows. King David thinks he seeks the Creator with all his heart, but in reality, he's a type of Messiah, the King of Kings. And we even read that King David and his seed, but it's referring to Messiah, though, called King David there in the prophecy in Scripture, because King David wasn't spiritual. That's only the flesh, natural understanding. So someone that kills someone with the sword has a wicked heart. That's the truth. We have to face it. And he's given, this is the enigma of the church world. A carnal man cannot understand anything spiritual. The natural man does not receive the things of the Spirit of the Father, period. Like we read there plainly too. They were carnal, and Israel was carnal, but first the natural. And the wages of sin has always been death. And destruction of the flesh there is literal. You destroy who and what someone is for sin. But Israel is tricked because it doesn't believe. It does evil when it murders someone. Yes, that's the truth. It's an enigma for eternity for those that don't know the Father. It's offensive. Whatever they don't know, they're afraid of, and they run, and they don't seek the Creator with their heart. Like we read for David, they're seeking him with all his heart. Messiah is the fulfillment of that natural understanding. Those words are spiritual, and it is a teaching for us, spirit, to understand the spiritual understanding of that truth, seeking with all the heart. But King David couldn't do that as a carnal man. The carnal man's best of seeking with all the heart is to break the spiritual laws continually. That's the best a carnal man can seek with his heart, is be a murderer and a thief and a robber and a killer, but these things are spiritual speaking. The heart's still that. And it's about the heart. And heart is like symbolics for spiritual things, unseen by the physical eye. The mind, the heart, the spirit, the Spirit of the Father. And there's teachers out there who specialize in saying spirit's just a feeling. What they try to do is say there is no spirit. They're like the Sadducees. No spirit, no angels of heaven, no resurrection. So then what is going on here? With the understanding, everything is simple. When the understanding comes in from above, understanding is easy. Like we read Proverbs, Psalm somewhere, understanding is easy to him who has, whoever's given. It's easy, simple. His truth is simple. The Father's judgment against Israel and against David is to hand him over to some kind of sin, which is not directly tempting David. The Father's not doing this directly, but he's doing it nevertheless through the enemy. That's why people who say there is no enemy, they don't know what they're talking about when they say there is no enemy, there is no devil, there is no serpent, which is not Eve, which is not Adam. It's a different being. That's what Genesis, they're giving us the picture. That serpent is different, separate from Adam and Eve. That is the devil. And he's like a serpent, like a snake. His heart, spirit, is that of a serpent physically. It's what it looks like, with a nasty, venomous, attacking, always doing evil continually. Serpents, spiritual Pharisees, are serpents, snakes. Anyone that's carnal does the works of a snake continually concerning real things, spiritual, heart. A snake doesn't do good. A venomous, poisonous snake doesn't do good. It's an angry, vicious creature that only wants to kill, steal, and destroy whatever comes its way. And if it's attacked, it will kill, steal, and destroy. It won't be a sheep and rely on the Father's protection. So we don't murder with our heart. The snake will always attack if it's threatened. It won't sit there like a sheep and get torn at. And that's where we need the miracle of the Father's protection, so we don't murder with the heart. It's a miracle. That is a spiritual real power he gives. Just like there was a real power for Israel to fight against the enemies, but we're not carnal Israel fighting against, to kill someone literally and destroy the flesh literally is murder, and no one can do that without hatred in the heart. That's the revelation. Revelation is Israel was carnal Israel before it grew up into spiritual Israel, and it was destroyed, like we read in prophecy to Moses, Exodus, somewhere, more than once, that this is what's going to happen if you keep doing what you do. Another nation you don't know, another language you don't know is going to come and wipe you out. And it happened. What is that? 3,000-year prophecy for that. It happened exactly according to the prophecy that was existed long ago. And so then anyone who mocks like revelation and longer period of time prophecy, I would be worried for them to probably get away from that, because the things they don't believe must be unlimited. If they don't believe in the Father's power and prophecy, who are they? So there's people out there that teach, they do it very tricky. They mock. They'll use things like, that's how the Jews spoke back then. And, they're very, you know, without the Father giving us understanding, it's a sneaky, crafty way to destroy people and get them to believe a lie. The prophecy is still going on, it's never ending about mankind and prophecy. It's always working. And the dividing and scattering to the nations was prophesied long ago. And if they do what's right, they'll be gathered together back again. That's why we're at the end. We're at the end of this age, at the latter end of it, because there are a few people in this world that are spiritual, that are following Messiah, that are learning the commandments for their heart first and foremost, and not flesh only. Flesh can't please him. No one in the flesh can please him. It should be, once that understanding is seen, it's pretty obvious what it means. Natural carnal ways of the flesh cannot please him, because that's not what the law ever meant. And so, yeah, we read so many times, I put Psalm 119 in there because of it, because it's huge. I think it's the biggest chapter in the Psalm. I think so. It's a big chapter. It's a lot of verses. And it repeats over and over again something that mankind doesn't believe: his judgment. Learning his judgment, his commandments, we repeat. It repeats over and over again: his commandments, his laws, his judgments, his statutes, his precepts. Over and over again. They can read it, and it doesn't even register at all in the church world. No clue. Because a carnal man cannot believe in his judgments, that they're ever present, and that for every action there is a judgment for the heart. But a carnal man doesn't see spiritual things, therefore there is no judgment. Judgment would be like, tribulation, physical tribulation, but even that is not judgment. They explain that naturally, because the governments are doing this and this is happening. They'll always go around his judgments. A natural carnal man, religious or not, they will always do that, and that's what's frustrating. They just will not ever see, as long as they're carnal, his judgments. First the natural, then the spiritual, and Satan there, and the Creator, Yahuwah. It says Lord there, and that's the name. That's the Creator, and it's plain. It says that he was, in his righteous anger, aroused against Israel because of their sin, and moved King David to account. But then later we read somewhere he's scolded for that. He's doing wrong because it's not in the numbers, it's in his power. Over and over we get, small few people able to conquer many. It's not about the numbers. It's not for his people to believe in numbers like a carnal man. There's nothing he can't do. It doesn't matter if 10,000 people wanted to kill you, they wouldn't be able to if the Creator doesn't allow it. It doesn't matter. They won't be able to. If he determines for you not to get robbed, you won't get robbed. It's that simple. It's the protection shield of the Creator. But that doesn't mean he doesn't judge. He judges without partiality. If we rob, yeah, we just might get robbed back, I'm speaking spiritual words. But, to natural man, robbed is just literally getting robbed, and that's it. No further understanding of what robbed really means, perceiving what it really means. The Father's judgment and wrath in judgment is the enemy in someone full of wrath to go and do more sin for the destruction of the flesh for that sin. Satan, hand him over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh. I'm using that because it's simple words that anyone can understand, the very words themselves. It's too simple. Hand him over. That's what the enemy does, for the destruction of the flesh. So the Father moving David there is because of some kind of sin he's going to judge now. And what's going on is through the enemy and the wrath of the enemy in the carnal people, like we read in Revelation. Woe, woe, woe to the earth. The wrath of the devil is in them, Wrath of the devil has come upon them. It's always been true, though. It's for our benefit to start understanding this thing. So it's not the Father directly tempting out of himself David to sin, because we read 5-year-old understanding verse that he doesn't do that. He doesn't directly tempt someone to sin. That's not who he is. But he's still in charge of the judgments anyways, through the enemy, of which people out there's some that teach doesn't exist. If the enemy doesn't exist, we have serious spiritual problems, but they don't care or see that. If me saying that doesn't matter to someone that's carnal, what you have to see this spiritual problems in order for it to be a problem, but it's not a problem to them. So, but nevertheless, we read 2 different places there. The Creator and Satan moves David 2 different places. One says Satan, one has Yahuwah, the Creator. Which one? Both are true. It's an enigma for those that don't rely on the Creator for all things. Both are true because of how he does his judgments. The destroyer will destroy. It sounds like he does it, where the blood on the post, or the destroyer will destroy. It sounds like him, and yet other places it sounds like something a little different. It is him through the enemy doing all things, in control of all things, handing over someone to Satan so that they do a sin. Because of sin, he punishes them, so they do more sin, and then they get into more trouble and destruction. That's what the never-ending cycle loop of sin. The way to get out of it is the Creator to get us to stop doing something, and then it becomes like a circle of life. You get caught up in your own deceit for any given sin, and then handing over, like we can read, handing over to their lust, their sin, so they complete them. Because he doesn't accept sin, he's going to utterly make them sin. Because of not accepting sin, it's going to be dark and darker and utterly more dark, because he doesn't accept it. That's part of the judgment, is doing more sin. That is one thing to learn about his judgments, is that part of his judgment is to hand them over to do even more sin for the sin they're already doing. So whatever Israel's doing there, and King David, they were doing some kind of sin, and so the anger aroused from the Creator as a righteous judgment got David to do another sin, which is count the numbers. So it sounds like the Creator is telling him to sin, right? If we don't have this understanding, the Creator is saying, go and sin. And then he goes and but then scolds David, like blames him. Why did you do this? Because they have no clue. They're not God. It's for our admonition to know who the Creator is and that he's in control. And it's for our learning to start becoming obedient. It's not what this world thinks in its carnal mind. Yes, he is doing that on purpose, so we learn. That's what's going on. So then the Creator moves him because of through the enemy, like we got in the other verse, Satan, the wrath of Satan, the enemy inside someone, starts overcoming them with their mind and heart. and Satan enters Judas. It's not that he like was outside and then entered. It's those words are given because that's how you would say the spiritual understanding. You would say it like that, but it's not understood literally like that. That Satan now enters, and it's just that it's like he's out of control now for the sin. It's a big sin, and now there's nothing Judas can do, and that's what this world doesn't believe at all. That's why they need to fear the Creator, because when he does this, it's over. They will go into destruction, man. That's it. I'm not saying necessarily killing themselves, but so often it does happen in Hollywood, because they can't stop. You know, that's not free will. That's being utterly judged for doing evil, and he's showing his power, and he doesn't accept sin and evil. So then, so those words are saying it's not that Judas didn't already do evil, but now it's like he's all whatever control someone thinks they have, it's like now gone. It's like unleashing the beast, the serpent beast, like we read in Genesis, to go and have his way for the destruction of the flesh because of how great the sin is. That's how you would say the words. Satan enters Judas. This is no good, because now Judas is out of control, like completely. So this doesn't mean that the world's not in sin. It just that those that don't believe, that are, in continual sin, not everyone is at that stage of just, it's a trick. They think they have control and they don't. It's the Father's mercy and restraint, and he won't judge unrighteously. So if they didn't commit as big of a sin, like Judas, for example, there, a monstrous sin, then there's a little restraint, and someone thinks that they're doing that they can control themselves. Maybe someone should have a little pity on the wicked, on the evil. Isn't that what Messiah teaches us to do? Love the enemies. But we know that many will go down that way anyways, because we can't go against what's true, that there's many. But they should not condemn and point fingers because of this truth, because of this power and his judgment. Just to fear that his judgment exists and see and acknowledge that it's true. And someone is handed over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, like Judas, where a spiritual destruction so deep, in this case, leads him to take his life, but it's for the destruction of the flesh, and those who save their soul shall be destroying it anyways. But they still hold on. And the way I'm saying the words is like to picture who and what everyone is, their name, which is the old man, their name, their first name. And that name is holding on to itself, and he's being destroyed anyways. And he's being destroyed more. And then he's being destroyed more. And then he still holds on, and now there's like almost nothing left. Well, in Judas's case, then Judas, the old man, is destroyed. Might as well repent and believe in the Creator and be destroyed while we have life, because everyone's being destroyed, and his people are being destroyed too. But it's the old man dying while the Father's Spirit in us lives for the new man, the inner man, like we can read. That's how you would say these words. The inner man, the Father Spirit in us, growing and living while we're dying. While Ryan, the old man, the old name, and whoever else, whatever their name, is put to death, it's dying, it's no longer counted for its works. That's his favor. It's not up to the old man to do works. He needs to die. It can't do any good anyways. But this world at large does not understand his favor and abuses and misuses it, doesn't know what it's doing. But this is for a few people, though, that his favor exists, that it's not up to their works and power. And yet, at the same time, not using this as a license to sin, because those that really believe in him know that they'll be judged without partiality if they do that. There's a little fear there to keep in check to do what's right and not do that because they actually believe in his judgments, they wouldn't want to do that, and use it as for a license to sin. So then the enemy in David, to get him to do some kind of sin because of sin, and the Father judges and says, why you do that? That's wrong. How else will he know what's wrong? Yeah, that's what it's for, to learn what sin is. At the very base of the foundation, the law, it condemns, but it also is showing us what sin is. If it didn't say don't covet like we read, then we wouldn't know what covet really is. But we're talking spiritual understanding, not natural only like the carnal man would think of adultery and covet and whatever. Actually, covet is only spiritual. It's a little hint that the law is spiritual, because coveting is not flesh. Coveting is in the inside, in the heart, which could lead and often leads to like a literal sin, I guess, but the sin itself is spiritual, coveting, and so all the law is spiritual. It's like a little hint that the law is spiritual for those that see, have eyes that see and hear. If one is, then all are, because all came from one, and the Father, his spirit, and his law is spiritual, and it all came from him. Therefore, there's not 5 that are and 5 that aren't. All are spiritual if one is. All are. And so then all these sins, broken in the heart, broken in the mind and heart and spirit, that's what Messiah's people need to overcome. That's what this world has no clue of and isn't doing. The church world, no clue and isn't doing. So the apostle says, if no one can resist his will, why does he still blame us? It sounds like that's what's going on with King David, doesn't it? It's a perfect example of, it sort of seems like the Creator is doing that, although it's not directly, but he's doing it nevertheless through the enemy. And then he says, don't do that. Why are you doing it? And then you're going to get judged for doing it. Yeah, because it's not about what the carnal man thinks. Nothing to do. I don't know how to say it any better. The whole understanding, just life itself, is not about what this world thinks in its carnal mind at all. Zero. Creator is an utter authority and sovereignty, and he's teaching his people. And then the rest, well, there's a second death, a price to pay for not losing our soul, destroying it now. So then they have to die too. They have to learn too. I mean, everybody has to learn his way is the only way. And the wide gate is all the other world ways. It doesn't matter what religion. That's all fits in the wide gate, stuffed in the wide gate. And then the water, a little tiny little stream going off where it shouldn't go, I guess. Well, it doesn't seem like it would go there. That's the narrow gate going against the masses of the waters. Harlots on the waters. Babylon is on the waters. Have to learn how to walk on the waters, not drowned in it. Drowned in the sea of this world and its misery and death and temptation and sin constantly. So then, I guess I said it already, but that's why we read Satan and the Creator, Yahuwah. And I don't like using Lord anymore. It's abomination. But that's something for them, his people, to know that there's a few words that have been butchered, and it's quite purposeful to trap those that don't know him. It's just another little stumbling stone, that a word here and there is perverted, especially his name and Messiah's name. It should only be the proper name as it is in Hebrew. And then in the New Testament, we just read God, just Theos, God. It's like beyond like disrespect. There's like no reverence at all. There's no way that that's the reality of, his people would never just use a word that the whole entire world uses for the Creator, because that's not even set apart at all. Just God. But that's only good if someone's doing that without pride and self-righteousness. Whatever someone thinks they're keeping, if it's with pride and self-righteousness, it's worse than just not believing at all. So only out of a proper want and understanding, with no other intention. But the many out there, they'll say some of these words and teachings, and it's out of pride and self-righteousness, as they're better than others because they say the name or something. That can't be in the heart. And so what is it then? Well, then there's a proper time for someone to understand, where it becomes right for them. And if someone commands someone something, it might have not been their time yet to understand such and such thing with the heart and having a want to do what's right. Therefore, it'll just kill, because it will only be through pride and self-righteousness, instead of waiting on the Creator for all things, following the Messiah for all things. Where now they finally have the understanding of this law to some degree, or this commandment to some degree, and started keeping it for the right reasons only, apart from selfishness and pride and self-righteousness. There is no keeping his commandments with self-righteousness. That's sin. It's better they never believed if that's what continues. They start learning from above the spiritual law in the heart, and then for the right reasons and understandings, which needs to be given. I can't give that to anyone. No one can do that down here. But that's just how to say it in words. When they see the proper understanding, then they have the proper intention and want to do what's right concerning whatever they learned, this commandment or that commandment. Now it's done for the right reason. We got a pretty strong example of, like a symbolic, like Messiah getting angry at the tree, cursing it. What's going on? It's because of the understanding that Israel didn't have. He's angry at the tree. Yes, foolishness to everyone who can't see with spiritual eyes why he's angry at the tree for not producing fruit. Cut it down and destroy it. But it looks like a madman, right? Well, that's what we'll look like in this world. It's going to look like often that we're angry or something, or about simple things like a tree, a pencil, yogurt. It doesn't matter what it is. You see the sin behind it, therefore you're angry at that thing, but that's not what's going on inside. They only see that outside thing, and then they'll say, it's no big deal, it's just that. That's what the carnal people will do all day long. See, and you can't give that to them. You can try to say the words and it still won't register. You could give all the right words in the world to someone that doesn't know him, and it will not make any sense, because you have to have spiritual eyes to see and spiritual ears to hear. The words just coming at them, it will be as the Pharisees. You don't hear my word. But he's not talking about literally hearing his word inside. Saying spiritually you don't hear them. Your eyes have closed shut and the ears have grown dull of hearing. It's like a sad picture of someone just fading away and dying. Eyes have slowly closed shut and the ears have grown dull of hearing, and they don't hear my word. Why don't you hear my word? Messiah already knew, and yet he's still speaking to them out of, hear the words, you're doing evil. Why does he still blame us? Don't we start becoming like the Creator's image then? Because we're learning to hate evil, but we understand what's going on, so there's no condemnation in the heart. What will the carnal man do? Condemnation. Accuse you of condemnation, the very thing they only are capable of understanding. Will point it on you when they actually see good, when they actually see righteous discernment between good and evil. It'll be condemnation. And because of all the other understanding he gives us, it makes a way possible where the teachings line up with the works, because of these other things, because of how the enemy works, his judgments, and his plan for salvation of all mankind through judgment. Don't have to condemn anyone. The teaching goes along with the works. But to actually start doing that needs to be given. It's just saying the words, just saying these words. I don't condemn people because I know in the salvation of all. That's snakes out there are doing that all day long with teachings. They think because they say the words that they're actually doing that and understanding it. Those words are right, but it doesn't mean just because someone says those words that they're actually doing that with the heart. That has to be given, you know. That's what I see. It's like children out there. Yeah, it all looks like children. Carnal man is like a child still to grow up, and carnal Israel as a whole is like a child needed to grow up, mature, you know, in Messiah. All these laws are a guide to Messiah, because now we got to learn them for real. They seem to forget that circumcise the heart is in the law. If we find out we can't do that, oh, he doesn't command us things we can't do all day long. No one can keep a single law in their heart without the Father doing the works. That's a lot of things he commands us that we can't do. Once again, not about us through some kind of prideful free will delusion, worldview, and beliefs and ways, but about the Creator and what he's done for everyone and what he will do, and learning to be like him in his image, not him in our image, you know, which is like golden calves and beasts. You know, Egypt builds beasts, 50-50 creatures. Israel builds beasts, the second image of the beast that the first image builds. And then the first image, man, gives power to the second image through the lying wonders of Satan in them, that everyone marvels and wonders after God, the God of this world, with their heart, not proclaiming with the mouth, but everyone marvels and wonders in the heart. It's works of the devil that's marveling and wondering after the second image of the beast that the first image made. The man makes the abomination and makes his own God, and then spiritually in the heart, worshiping ultimately the God of this world, but the gods they created are the so-called gods, the many so-called gods in this world, but they're all connected to the enemy. And that worship of a made-up God goes back to self, selfishness and self-worship, seeking its own glory and not coming in the Father's name. If someone comes in their own name and they flock him, like Messiah said, but he comes in the Father's name, and all of a sudden they want to murder him, everyone. Comes in the very name of the Creator those people claim to believe, and they murder him, you know. They murder the Creator first, that's why they do that. And then they murder Messiah, and then they murder his people. And Messiah wants to say to his disciples, and he says to each one of his people's heart, because it's obvious for those that know him, you didn't choose me, I chose you to produce good fruit. And we also know that the Father gives Messiah, so when Messiah chooses, it's not even his choice. Yeah, there's a lot of understanding to be had that the carnal man has no just contradictions all day long, you know. You can say that, and he can say that because it's true. He chose them. The Father gave those sheep for him to choose, and that's what we read. All those that the Father gives me, none shall be lost. I won't cast them out. So the Father gives it to Messiah, and then Messiah chooses those that are given to him. And it has nothing to do with self, does it? No, it doesn't, because that's selfishness and self-righteous. His people know that. The rest of the world will not believe that in their heart, because they chose abomination. They built their own gods in their heart, religion. And saying those words doesn't mean anything by itself. Saying the right words of, you know, like Calvinist, it's an utter deception. With, you know, even the name is already an abomination because it's after some man's name. And because we're Calvinists, just like everything else, because we say these words, we're the chosen. Nonsense. Only those that do the Father's will end up being chosen. That's it. You know, which actually means something. It means hearing from him and doing what he tells us to do. The very thing that mankind hates the most is someone telling them what to do. The Calvinists don't believe that. They don't believe that the Creator is telling them what to do. It's nonsense. They just speak words, just lying, empty words that have no meaning. But they'll say some right words and trick people like that, because they'll say some right words about, like predestination. But in the Father sovereignty, it sounds like they believe in his sovereignty. Do they, though? Do they really understand his judgments and his power and sovereignty? What if their heart was exposed by a believer? What would they do? They would do exactly what all carnal people do: deny it and lie. And now we can start talking about free will. How come you can't do anything else? Well, they'll deny it again. And it's over already. No fellowship. Because there is no light and darkness mixing. It doesn't exist even in his creation. It's divided and separated. And the little bit of mixing is just a little period of time that you move quickly in one direction or the other. There's no reality of it. You move into dark or light. You'd never stay right in the middle. So that it appears people are lukewarm, but there's no reality to it. So then this understanding of the lukewarm, I vomit out. They're not actually lukewarm, and yet they're lukewarm, and that's like so often to understand his word is something just like that. Two things that have to be seen. And with the creator's judgment, two things, Satan and the creator, moving David, have to be understood that it's both. Both are true. But not literally both true. There's an understanding to be had. That the Father's wrath is the lack of him in someone, which means the devil's in someone. And it's the wrath of the devil that the Father gets to move through the judgment for the destruction of the flesh, And that's how he can be the destroyer without being the destroyer. But it's not one or the other. Both. The Father's the destroyer, and yet he's not the destroyer. Father moved David to count the numbers of sin, and yet he didn't move him to do that. Who cares about any of this, right? Everyone's fallen asleep in the harlot already. Well, actually, they wouldn't fall asleep. They would jump up like lions to get you out of there and try to murder you, That's what would happen. Because anything that's talked about for real with his spirit and power, cuts right to their heart, because we're talking about what their heart does every single day. And that's why someone rages, because the devil's been spotted. And nothing a beast hates more than being trapped and spotted in the night. It runs, or it'll try to attack, but that's when we need the creator's power. We need to riddle. Who is the number of the beast? The number is 666. It's the number of mankind. Number of man. But it sounds like it's like one man to come someday. It's called a riddle, just like we can read in Daniel. Pretty amazing. There's all kinds of things in his word that, don't even realize is in there until he starts showing us. There's like 5 different words: enigmas, riddles, dreams, or whatever in there. There's enigmas. It's an enigma to carnal man. And the creator gives to solve the enigma, because he gives us the understanding. I remember there's someone that passed away, I think 2012, but when I believed first, it was like instantly led to the lie of hell. It was like almost instant. It's like, first of all, you're real. I never believed in him growing up in religion. And then second of all, hell is an abomination. But then it's like the teachings first, the words first, but then some understanding needs to come further, quite a bit actually. And there's doubt. It's not like big enough. It's not settled. It's not firm. It needs to grow. So as long as there's doubt, someone can be tricked pretty easily, about anything. But that was through somebody on, they had a bunch of videos on YouTube, and they taught, the salvation of all, and mentioned through judgment and everything. But I didn't I couldn't see still, the spiritual things required about the destruction of the old man and perceive. It's just like teaching only at first. But that's how it stays for a carnal man. That's the scary part. It's just words. That's where it starts. Then he started showing me that this same person started showing me some things that I couldn't see in the beginning, and that's like disappointment comes in after a while. There's some monstrous lies he's also teaching. And so, like, what's going on here? A little bit of understanding came in. Just because someone says the words, it doesn't mean that they're of him. But that wasn't understood as it would be a few years later. Still needs to be understood more. I thought just because someone, they're of the truth because they say right words, right doctrine or something. And it's not the case. And then it starts getting more picky. Start getting into the, real things. Wait, that's a lie. If it's a lie, he's lying continually about the lies that are lies openly. When is he going to overcome lying? Can a saint continue in massive lies all their life with no overcoming at all? These are the things that carnal man doesn't perceive or care about. It's no big deal. They'll just casually say we have opinions and different beliefs. Yeah, that's what sin is. You ever heard of it? That's what sin is not receiving from him, meaning we're going to be lies and we're going to do evil works. Wherever there's evil works, there's also lies connected to the evil works every time. Secret teachings to get inside people. And that's how the crafty devil does it. He says a teaching with words, but inside, spiritual, it means something else that's contradicting his truth. And that gets inside people in their heart. And that's how they sort of become like that leader. They become like him in like the same kind of fashion and form, same kind of looking ditch, where every ditch is no good, but there's different ditches, different shapes. I also noticed that that person had a lot of views, had a website, hundreds of thousands, I think maybe even total might have been in the millions, but I could find, later you start reading some of what people are saying, and you could find pride within the groups and division within the groups, and then they create their own groups because the carnal man always needs to be special and superior to everyone. So he starts creating his own thing, and I remember posting on there something I started seeing I didn't like, and they deleted the comments on this Salvation of All website for forum. Like, what is going on, so that temptation to like rise above, step on people, pride and self-righteousness, better than you because we say these words, have nothing to do with reality or works of the heart. It has nothing to do with humble. It's the opposite, actually. And so there's just more divisions within the divisions. It's like, where is truth? What is this thing? Some doubt creeps in. Maybe there isn't anyone that knows the Father at all. Just messed up. You start believing more about yourself. Where is the unity? Where is people who aren't lying and raising up as gods and kings in this world over people? Yeah, and then you find out years go by. You end up being whatever you read. Prophets are like out in the desert, and everyone hates them. No one believes them. Like, wait, this is what it's supposed to be like. The world hates truth, they hate the Father. It's divided, and it's called Babylon, confusion. It's supposed to be confusing, literally, So that's what's so messed up about everything in religion and in the church world, because there's people pointing fingers at each other, but you can't even begin to get to the bottom of it, because what they're talking about isn't what the Father's giving his people in the heart to speak of. It's like some condemning words and the other one's condemning other words, and they're not talking about anything real anyways. That's some serious confusion. But each one thinking they know, trying to prove they know and better than others. Can't they see the divisions in this world? How could they accept division like this, that the body is that divided? Because they don't know the Father. They can't comprehend at all him, and neither could I. No one can before they believe. It's doing the best it can, which is evil, continually. That's the truth. Carnal man, its best is evil continually. That's why he has to die. You start dying, then you start gaining knowledge, understanding, and good work from him, from the Father above. It's the only way, is to die to who and what. If he doesn't destroy actual good, whatever is good spiritually, whatever is actually good, he doesn't destroy that. That's monstrous. Where's the scripture that he destroys actual good, which is only coming from him? It's like to destroy himself. So if that carnal man, if there was even 1% good in him, he wouldn't destroy it, would he? If there was only 10 in Sodom and Gomorrah that are righteous, considered righteous because of the Father's righteousness, that's the teaching, but there's no reality yet back then. You wouldn't destroy Sodom and Gomorrah if there was 2 people left in there, right with the wicked, as if they're one thing. Because that's an unrighteous judgment, to just wipe out the righteous as if they were the wicked, and the wicked as the righteous. There's a separation, and they're pulled out, I guess angels unaware, appearing as men, pulling him out before the actual destruction of the nation. Wonder what he'll do at the end. Something like that on a grand scale. Saved in the ark, but not in a literal ark. Won't need to be in a literal ark, but something like that. Rising above, falling back down. So then he doesn't destroy, good as this understanding, which only comes from him. He doesn't destroy good. So someone can be assured that the carnal man is no good at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to die. If Adam was good, even a little bit of good of himself, of the flesh, which can't please him at all, it's 0 or 100 with him, with all things. If 5% of the flesh could please him, then we wouldn't be able to read, the flesh can't please him. Someone can appreciate the all or nothing of the Creator. 0 or 100 for all things, everything. No mixing. That's what the world does. 50-50 abomination, and calls it good, calling good and evil together as good. And then when it does evil, it thinks it's good in the heart, and that's why it's constantly doing. So the carnal man is no good. He has to die and be put to death because he's no good, and all its works are like filthy rags. All the works are like filthy rags. Sad face on Israel. It just couldn't do it, and neither could anyone else. So then the Father gave the new covenant, and he's proving the exact opposite of what the mind of this world is. The second covenant proving the literal perfect opposite of what this world is and what a carnal person is. Can't do anything good of himself. All day long the scriptures are there that can't be contradicted. Even for a natural man cannot contradict simple scriptures. They won't be able to believe them. What do? Pick and choose, add and take away. Pick and choose, add a little if they want, take away. It's what's required to maintain their religion, is abomination continually. Which one is it? Is it Satan or the Creator? Pick and choose, add and take away as they please. So the new covenant is the Father's Spirit being poured out, the power in us, and then destroying the old man in a process of time, a little here, a little there, and then growing. The more that's destroyed, the more we can do the Creator's good works more often. The old man starts dying because he's no good, not even 5% good in the old man. Who believes this? It's an abomination to a carnal man because they literally cannot perceive spiritually what evil is in the heart, that it does all day long. It doesn't know. That's why it's an abomination, because when you say the carnal man is evil and nothing good about him, it's offensive because that's who and what they are still, the old name. It's offensive to them to just speak truth because they're still that fully. What do you mean? There's nothing good about me. I do a lot of good things. I'm good. They cannot accept that they don't know anything if not given from the Father, and same for all. Messiah had to learn. No one knows and can do good works apart from the Father's understanding and power to show us what sin is continually. Pretty scary. You know, I'm like being as literal as I can. It doesn't know what sin is. Carnal man doesn't know what sin is. It can speak naturally. It can trick people with words, make it sound spiritual. It does all these things. It doesn't matter. When the evil works are detected and exposed by any light in this world, and if someone's a light, it's because it's the Father's light in them, Messiah, Father and Messiah in us. It will expose those exact deeds. It exposes the darkness that its deeds, works, were evil. What is that Messiah saying? That its works are evil? So someone today, right now, they need to continue to learn what sin is, because we don't know. You know, that's why we have to follow the Lamb. All these things start making sense, because we don't know. You know, the old man can't lead himself. It's doing evil continually. It needs to die. How could something that needs to die bleed itself? It needs to die. We follow the Lamb, because we don't know, you know. And if someone wants to go off and try their own way, that's what he's proving to this mad, insane world. Go out and do it. Little rebellious kid, I'll give you some supplies, go do it. And they end up eating pig food like a beast, spiritually with their heart. That's what it looks like. That's what sin starts looking like that people are doing. They're doing exactly that with the heart, spiritual. It's that blind. It's building gods in its mind, and it says it's God and worships it as God. It's that blind, you know. Everyone's that blind in the beginning. That's it. That's all a carnal man is blind. So that what? They just stay away from them. They pick and choose, you know. They're never gonna, they can't speak on things and something they don't know. What does it mean to have eyes but not see anything at all? Don't they know that that's a literal 100% blinding? Because a blind man is how blind? Shouldn't even have to ask. 100% blind if he's blind. They have eyes but cannot see. 100%, not 50, 90, 85. They have eyes but cannot see. That means can't see. All right, the beast is calling. Got to go and do an order. So then he needs to heal our eyes and give us eye salve to heal the blinding. You know, that's why Messiah heals the blind person, the examples of healing the blind, and the Pharisees don't believe it. Who is this guy? Where's his parent? We need to talk to this guy. Oh, you didn't get healed by anyone, right? And then the blind man just replies what the Messiah did for him. He says, I know, I've been born like from birth blind. He healed me. And then the Pharisees say, you're going to teach us? You were born in sins. Talking about themselves. All right, peace, take care, seek truth from above.